Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar on a spouse visa. I'm here today with my colleagues, Immigration Solicitor Edward Mead and Immigration Advisor Zhenya Edward. We'll be talking about the application process, how to avoid refusal, how to apply for settlement, any potential problems you can face. Obviously, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them here in Zoom if you are watching us through Zoom, or through Facebook in comments, as we also will be having a live stream on our Facebook page. Over to you, Edward.
Yes, thank you, Anastasia. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. What my colleague and I will be outlining is the requirements for spouse visas. So that will be the initial application, extension stage, and then subsequent settlement application. So firstly, with the initial spouse visa requirements, there's various requirements which the Home Office require applicants must meet. So the first one of that is that a applicant is in a genuine and subsisting relationship with their partner. Now, with regards to partners, this has slightly changed recently. So those who now have formed a relationship after the grace period finishing from the United Kingdom leaving the EU, spouses are now those that have relationships where they've entered into after that period can now look to bring their partners and spouses over to the United Kingdom. So yes, firstly, we need to show that there's a genuine relationship requirement, meaning that you and your partner can demonstrate you're in love and you intend to live together permanently. Then we must show the financial requirements, so prove you can support yourself without recourse to public funds. So with regards to the financial requirements, we must show that the requirement of 18,600 has been met. Now, I know we don't have much time today to go through all of this, so there are various ways which we can demonstrate that. The most straightforward version of that would be for the for the sponsor, who would be, say, the British citizen or individual who holds humanitarian protection, refugee leave to remain, and they don't meet the requirements for family reunion, and also those who hold settlement here in the United Kingdom, and also those individuals who hold settled and pre-settled status can now sponsor applicants under Appendix EU of the immigration rules. So with regards to the financial requirements, we have to show that 18,600 has been demonstrated and met within the last 6 months of the application process. So for this, the most straightforward way of showing that would be for the sponsor, in this example, say a British citizen, evidencing that they're earning above 18,600 through the last 6 months pay slips, 6 months bank statements, and a letter from their employer confirming the annual salary which they're receiving. So you're effectively showing that at the point of application, 9,300 has been earned in salary by the sponsor. Going further across, we then have to show evidence about the accommodation requirements. So that's to show that any potential applicant coming to the UK would have adequate accommodation. So that would be in the form of a tenancy agreement, confirming that there's perfect permission to reside with the sponsor in the UK. Also can be the form of property deeds showing that a mortgage statement is in place for the applicant to come to the United Kingdom. Also, and importantly, another requirement is that of English language. So an individual must show that they have basic level English when applying for an initial application. So that would be, say, level A1 English from an approved Home Office test centre. So this varies from country to country, so it's best to check online through the Home Office website to see which is a advisory and regulated immigration test centre which an applicant can then attend. So with regards to English language, this does be staggered throughout the spouse visa process. So of course, if you're applying for, say, a fiancé visa or a spouse visa or an unmarried partner visa, for the initial application, you need to show that level A1 English has been met, provided you're not from a majority speaking English language country. If you're an individual that's here within the UK on, say, Tier 4 visa and you've graduated, then you can rely upon your degree certificate as proof that you meet the English language requirements, okay? So there are various nuances about how to meet the rules and what we can do. So I think it's important that this is just advisory, and of course, please feel free to get in touch after the webinar, and we can guide you throughout the whole process going forward. Now, one of the most potentially challenging and sometimes difficult requirements to prove of the spouse visa is that of the genuine subsisting relationship. So it can be quite invasive from the Home Office part, but I believe if you include, say, photographs of yourselves, a marriage certificate if you're looking to apply as a spouse, or if you're looking to apply as a fiance, then evidence that you're searching for, say, a wedding venue. Also, you can include, say, WhatsApp messages, Viber, Facebook, Instagram. Be creative, letters from friends and family to show about your genuine relationship with one another. So, of course, it's important that each case is different with regards to requirements. There are those applicants from certain countries who need to pass a tuberculosis test as well. So that would be crucial to make sure that you meet all of the requirements going forward as part of the initial spouse or fiance visa or a married partner visa application. And then going forward, obviously, like I said before, with regards to when you apply for the initial application, if you're applying as fiance from outside of the United Kingdom, you receive a 6-month fiance visa. Now, with that, when you come to the UK, you're required to be married within 6 months and then make an in-country application for a spouse visa application. So you don't have to wait until that 6 months expires. You can also, if you look to get married on say the day after you arrive, I appreciate it's difficult at the moment with COVID and various wedding ceremonies are delayed, etc. But there isn't a requirement for you to wait the whole 6-month period. As soon as you are married with a fiance visa, you can then look to switch in country once you are married, and that marriage certificate is the most important form for the Home Office. With regards to our married partners, we have to show that at the point of application, you and your partner have been living together in a relationship akin to a marriage for 2 years or longer. So you'd need to evidence that by tenancy agreements, mortgage statements, utility bills, presenting a timeline of your relationship with your partner. So that's something which is important to note of what evidence you can procure, and if letters from friends or landlords confirming that you and your partner have resided at this address, then you can look to do that. Now, of course, with the spouse and unmarried visa entry clearance, once you're applying, it would be for 2.5 years leave to remain in the United Kingdom. And then at the extension stage, you still need to show the requirements are still met. So financial, that you're in a genuine subsisting relationship, accommodation is there, and English language as well. So those are the important parts, and you still have to continue that throughout the 2.5 period which you've been granted leave to remain. And then going forward for the settlement stage, it's important that you still show that you've advanced with your English language, and also importantly, you still have to show financial accommodation. You're in a genuine subsisting relationship, but at this stage, you also have to show knowledge of life in the UK. So that's something where you're demonstrating, how many wives King Henry VIII has, etc. Very confusing questions, but one of the requirements from the Home Office. And then that would enable you to be in a position to then look forward to potentially applying for naturalisation after. So with regards to, say, naturalisation, if you are married to a British citizen, once you receive settlement, you don't need to wait a year to apply to naturalise. You can apply for naturalisation straight away. However, if you're not married to a British citizen, you will have to hold permanent settlement for a year in order to apply for naturalisation. So that's a very brief and basic overview of the spouse visa general requirements, say for the initial application, extension stage, and then settlement. My colleague Zhenya is going to guide you through the process of potential grounds for refusal.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Edward. Thank you, Anastasia. Yes, as Edward has already mentioned, one of the most challenging requirements is the relationship requirement. And so the application can be refused on the basis that the Home Office does not find your evidence of relationship convincing, and then they don't believe that you have a genuine and subsistent relationship. But also, one of the most challenging requirements is the financial requirement. And as Edward has already pointed out, we don't have much time today to go through this requirement in detail. There are various ways in which you can meet this requirement. If you are, say, employed, then it's fairly straightforward. But if you are self-employed, or if you are a director of a specified limited company, then it's going to be a quite document-heavy application. There is a lot of evidence that you need to provide to prove that you actually meet the 19,600 threshold. And very often when clients take it upon themselves to prepare an application and they miss out on crucial evidence and they don't submit it, even though it's obvious to them that they meet the financial requirement. But then the Home Office forms the view that they have not provided sufficient evidence and the application is refused. You lose the application fee, the time. So it can be very, very frustrating for everyone. Also, the accommodation requirement. I've not seen many applications refused on the basis that there isn't sufficient room for the sponsor and their partner, as long as you've provided evidence of the size of the property. So now I often get a question from my clients: how do I prove the size of the property? A lot of clients order an inspection report, and that's obviously can be quite costly. So there are other ways in which you can demonstrate the size of the property. What I often do for my clients, I find a property on Zoopla website, and then you can find the size of the property there, and then you can provide a printout of the website to demonstrate that. Obviously, if you are renting, then you can get a letter from the agency to confirm the size of the property. If you're living with, say, your partner's parents, then they own the property, then they can also provide a statement to confirm the size of the property. Usually that should be sufficient for the purposes of making the application, and the Home Office will find this sufficient evidence to accept that you meet this requirement. The English language requirement can also be an issue. If, for example, you've done the test, but then the exam center is not on the list of the providers approved by the Home Office. So the application can also be refused on that basis. So you really need to look out for those things and make sure that you take the test with an approved test provider. Other things, obviously, adverse immigration history can be an issue. For example, if you've previously entered the UK illegally, if you have overstayed your visa, it can be an issue. But usually the application for a spouse visa should not be refused on that basis. As long as you disclose that information and you explain in your covering letter, or your solicitors explain the circumstances in their covering letter. Also, one of the questions that I get from my clients: what happens if the relationship does not work out and my partner and I eventually decide to separate? Do I still get to keep my visa? Strictly speaking, no, because once you get your spouse visa, you are essentially sort of attached to your partner, so you are dependent of your partner, and when your relationship ends, that means that you no longer have a permission to stay in the UK on the basis of your relationship or your marriage to your sponsor. But there may be other ways for you to still remain in the UK. So I'm just going to quickly touch on those. For example, if you are a victim of domestic violence and abuse, you can then still stay in the UK without your partner's support. Obviously, you will need to provide evidence of that particular incident or a series of incidents relating to domestic abuse. That could be in the form of a police report or a court decision. As long as you can provide that, you will be able to stay in the UK even though the relationship has broken down. Also, if, let's say, the relationship has ended, but there was no violence involved and you are still on good terms with your partner, and you have a child that is a child who is a British citizen, then you can switch to a parent route. What does that mean? That you will essentially look to get a visa to stay in the UK on the basis of your relationship to your British child. Then we will probably arrange for another seminar to go over the requirements under that route. There will be a different set of requirements. They are somewhat similar to the requirements under the spouse route, but still there are some differences. There may be some other immigration categories available to you, a skilled worker visa, maybe a startup or innovator visa, or a global talent visa. So those are all the options that we can explore should your relationship with your British partner break down. So yeah, those are the most common things to look out for when you apply, and if your relationship runs into trouble going forward.
Thank you, Zhenya. Thank you, Edward. That was we did have a lot of questions. What happens if, in case marriage breaks down? Because unfortunately, right now, due to COVID, statistics are not quite favorable. I just want to remind everyone that we do have a family law solicitor, and if you need our help, we'll be glad to assist you. We also have another question related to COVID. What kind of change we have in regards to lockdown? If we are on furlough leave, how can we satisfy the financial requirements? So my understanding is, what happens if British spouse is on furlough? Can they still satisfy the financial requirement for spouse visa?
Yes, so certainly there are provisions in place for concerning those who have been affected by the coronavirus. So in this sense, I think it's best practice if that individual wishes to say, provide their details, we can then follow up after to take instructions with regards to how the finance has been affected, the proximity of the job, but there are, regulations in place which enable individuals to rely upon furlough in order to meet the financial requirement. It should also be noted with those individuals who are here in the United Kingdom and are unable to return to their home country. Say, for instance, those who are on visit visas, for instance, they can switch in country at the moment. However, this is on a case-by-case basis from the Home Office. So previously last year, when the first lockdown began in March, the Home Office relaxed rules. So there were various, applicants, and I had clients myself who were able to benefit from switching from a visit visa to a spouse visa within the UK. So we'd certainly need to make representations on that behalf, explaining about the individual circumstances whereby they can't return to their home country. And also I know there's been questions regarding individuals who've been unable to sit an English language test. Obviously this is a mandatory requirement. So what the Home Office do advise is that for those individuals who are unable to meet the English language test requirement because there aren't any centres open, then they do advise to either attend an alternative English language centre, or you can submit the application. However, it will be on hold until you pass the English language test. Okay, so you'll be effectively placed in a queue in order to then have your application determined after. So I think, yes, certainly for that individual who inquired about furlough pay, please feel free to provide your details, and then we can liaise with you soon after this webinar ends.